For decades, scientists believed one simple idea: fire made us human. It cooked our food, protected us from predators, warmed us during freezing nights, and eventually allowed us to spread across the planet. But then archaeologists uncovered something unsettling. In caves across Africa, researchers found stone tools that were nearly 3 million years old. The tools clearly belonged to ancient human ancestors. There was just one problem. There was no evidence of fire, no charcoal, no ash, no burned bones, nothing. These early humans were already walking across dangerous landscapes, cutting apart animal carcasses, and surviving among giant predators. Yet they appeared to be doing it completely without fire. And that raises a terrifying question. What exactly did humans do before fire? Imagine the world after sunset. No campfires, no torches, no lanterns, no glowing circle of safety. Just darkness, the kind of darkness most modern people have never experienced. Millions of years ago, when the sun disappeared below the horizon, the world belonged to something else. Lions, hyenas, leopards, giant saber-toothed cats, massive hunting packs that could see, smell, and hear far better than any human. Today, fire feels ordinary. Back then, it may have been the difference between being the hunter and becoming dinner, which makes the mystery even stranger. If our ancestors didn't have fire, how did they survive at all? At first, the answer seemed obvious. Maybe they simply avoided danger. Maybe they stayed hidden. Maybe they lived cautiously and waited for humans to eventually discover fire, but the evidence didn't fit. Scientists began examining fossil sites from ancient Africa. What they found was shocking. These early humans weren't hiding from danger. They were walking directly into it. At several archaeological sites, researchers discovered animal bones covered in stone tool cut marks. The cuts showed that ancient humans were butchering large animals. Not rabbits, not birds, massive mammals, some weighing hundreds or even thousands of pounds. And that's where things get strange. Large carcasses attracted predators. Fast. A dead animal lying on the African savanna was like ringing a dinner bell. Hyenas would arrive. Then lions. Then other scavengers. Every minute mattered. Yet somehow these fireless humans repeatedly approached dangerous carcasses and walked away alive. How? The answer may lie in a forgotten survival strategy that modern humans almost never think about: fear. Or more specifically, the lack of it. Many scientists now believe early human ancestors occupied a very unusual position in nature. They weren't the strongest animals. They weren't the fastest. They didn't have claws. They didn't have fangs. But they had something else: numbers. Unlike many predators, ancient humans often moved in groups. A lone human was vulnerable. 20 humans were a different story. A pack of determined primates throwing rocks, waving sticks, shouting, and moving together could become surprisingly intimidating. Even large predators sometimes chose to avoid injuries rather than risk a confrontation. But this created a new mystery. Surviving predators is one thing, surviving food is another, because without fire, every meal created a deadly problem. Raw meat, raw plants, raw everything. And for ancient humans, that may have been even more dangerous than the predators waiting in the dark. Food was different. Food could kill you quietly. And that is where scientists found something strange. When researchers studied our closest living relatives, chimpanzees, gorillas, and other primates, they noticed that these animals spend enormous amounts of time eating, chewing, grinding, processing raw food. Some primates spend nearly half their waking lives simply eating. At first, that might not sound important, but ancient humans were changing. Their brains were growing, and brains are expensive. Even though the brain is only a small part of the body, it consumes a huge amount of energy. A growing brain needs calories, lots of them. The obvious solution would be simple: eat more. But raw food made that difficult. Raw plants are hard to digest. Raw meat is tough to chew, and both require time and energy to process. So, how were ancient humans finding enough calories long before fire became common? The answer may not have been fire, it may have been tools. Some of the oldest stone tools ever discovered show signs of cutting meat, slicing skin, and breaking apart carcasses. A sharp stone can turn a tough piece of raw meat into smaller pieces. It can separate muscle from bone. It can open an animal and expose calorie-rich organs. The food was still raw, but it became easier to eat, easier to chew, easier to digest, and easier to turn into energy. In other words, stone tools may have been humanity's first food technology. Long before cooking changed food, tools may have started that process. But tools created another problem. Ancient humans were not the only ones looking for meat. Imagine a freshly dead mammoth on the savannah. To us, it might look disgusting. To ancient humans, it looked like survival. Thousands of calories, enough food for an entire group. But every scavenger in the landscape wanted the same prize. The race had already begun, and survival may have depended on reaching the carcass before everything else did. Which raises a dangerous question. If humans had no claws, no fangs, and no fire, how were they winning that race? Maybe they were not winning. Maybe they arrived late. Maybe they survived on scraps. But the evidence did not fit. Archaeologists found cut marks on the richest parts of animal skeletons. The best meat. The most valuable areas, not just leftovers. That meant ancient humans were sometimes reaching the prize early. And if they were reaching it early, they were not always following predators. Sometimes predators may have been following them. That sounds impossible. A small group of fragile primates should not be able to compete with powerful hunters. But humans had one unusual advantage: endurance. Humans are not very fast. A horse is faster. A lion is faster. Most prey animals are faster. But humans can keep going. Some scientists believe ancient hunters used a method called persistence hunting. The idea was simple. Find an animal, follow it, keep following it for hours under the heat of the sun. The animal runs. The humans keep coming. Eventually, the animal begins to overheat. Most mammals do not cool themselves as efficiently as humans. Humans sweat. As long as water is available, a human can keep moving long after many animals begin to struggle. Ancient humans may have turned exhaustion into a weapon. Not claws, not teeth, not speed, fatigue. But hunting was not the only advantage. There was also cooperation. Humans shared information. One person discovered water. Another learned which plants were safe. Another noticed where animals moved during dry seasons. Knowledge moved through the group. And once knowledge could spread, survival changed. Success no longer depended only on instinct. It depended on learning. Each generation inherited more than genes. It inherited experience. But even with tools, endurance, and cooperation, there was still one terrifying problem: night. Every day, darkness returned. During daylight, humans could watch the landscape. After sunset, those advantages disappeared. The most dangerous hunters gained the upper hand. So humans stayed together. Imagine a group huddled inside a rocky shelter as darkness spreads across the land. No fire, no glowing protection, no walls, no locks, only numbers. One human was vulnerable. A group was harder to attack. Survival became a group effort. Humans could reduce risk, share experience, and protect one another. Then, somewhere deep in prehistory, humans gained control of something transformative. Fire. Not the discovery of fire. Wildfires had always existed. Lightning had always burned trees. The real breakthrough was control, keeping fire alive, protecting it, carrying it, using it when needed. And suddenly, everything changed. Food became safer. Nights became brighter. Predators became less threatening. Cold places became survivable. Human populations expanded. Migration accelerated. But the most surprising part is this. By the time humans mastered fire, they were already experienced survivors. They had lived for millions of years without it. Fire did not create their abilities, it amplified them. So how did humans survive before fire? They were not waiting helplessly for fire to rescue them. They were already becoming human through tools, through endurance, through cooperation, through learning. Fire was not the beginning of the story, it was the next chapter. The world before fire was not filled with helpless creatures. It was filled with resilient humans solving impossible problems with the only tools they had: their bodies, their groups, and their minds. And that ability to adapt may be the greatest survival tool humanity has ever possessed.